Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, because there are like almost 300 people watching us online, everywhere in the world. Madrid is everywhere in the world. Well, I've been here for the last few years. It's kind of weird mentally because I will have to ask you many questions, but this will be kind of a meeting, kind of a talk show, in order to ask questions to our guests. But I will say like the CES, you will introduce yourselves first. What a beginning. Lucas Ferrer. I'm a lawyer specialist in sports law. I'm based in Barcelona in a firm called Statim. Maite, I'm Maite Nadal. I'm also a lawyer specialized in sports law at Laffer Abogados. I'm also an arbitrator in the CES. Javier? Hi. Good afternoon, good evening. Javier Ferrero. I'm a partner and manager at Senn Ferrero, Asociados expert in sports law. I mean, it's really exciting to be here because I began my career as a lawyer here in this house. Yeah. We were in one of the first cases we had. Well, I've been told that we have prepared 3 parts. The first is like a warm-up, like Formula 1. The second is kind of more serious, and the third is even more serious. So the first question is something that I shouldn't ask to a young lady like you. You're still a young lady. Which is your age? How old are you? And since when you've been working in sports law? May I start? Yeah, Maite could be the first, but as you are in between both of us, you can do it. Well, the funny thing of this conversation is we are among friends. We've known each other since many years ago. This is nice, Juan de Dios. We said some of the questions you will ask, some of them should be answered by you too. I've already done it. I'm the 4th in this round table. In order to answer to your question, today, just today, it's 20 years since... Are you 20? No. It's 20 years since I began my career in sports law. After I finished college, I began my internship in Pintor Ruiz del Valle, and now it's 20 years since that very moment. Really, well, not exactly today, but this year. And I didn't even realize until I had a look at it. So this means that for you, you are beginning in this world, your career, but you can be to this to yourself. I don't like to talk about me very much, and I didn't say how happy and excited I am to be with you all, because for me it is an honor and a real pleasure to be also in this home, because I am a Madridista. So coming here for me is quite of an honor. So 21 years for me. I finished in a very strange, rocambolesque way. I was in charge of sports law. It was Javier Tebas, my first boss, and I didn't know a word of sports law. And Javier gave me known all the mess that was behind. And that's the way I began 20 years ago. And that very year I met you for the first time. I was the most junior worker in the whole firm. And I was there for 11 years. So at least you know what you want to do professionally, sports law. I got there in the most strange way. This is something I didn't choose. I was lucky, however. I don't have any master's degree. I've studied a lot. In our age, there weren't master's degree. Working with Javier, that counts as a master's degree. But you are really lucky. People studying this, if you know that you want to devote yourselves to sports law, you are very lucky. You didn't tell me your age. I have no problem to tell it. I think it's something known. Can you tell that? It's not interesting. I'm 54. I began my career in sports law. I remember of the date, July the 1st, 1999. I was getting married on July the 24th. So when I was said that I was going to be here, as I told people there that I was going to get married. However, I had worked in another firm before, but in the sports law, 25 years. I have been working in sports law for 43 years in a row. Not professionally, but in a random way. I played futsal, and as I was studying law, the Football Federation Association of Valencia, they told me, you're going to be the director of the disciplinary committee in Valencia. And I realized that I really enjoyed that. I love sports, I love law, and little by little, that's how I went on. I can say my age without any problem. 64 years old. That's my age. The importance of languages in international sports law. Your master's degrees are international. They can be taught in Spanish, in English. For all of you who are carrying on undergraduate studies, languages are paramount. They are essential. Today we were on a meeting with the judge's government, and they told us that speaking languages is something necessary. So languages, what do you think about it? How many of them do you speak? How many languages do you speak? I fully agree. In this domain, sports law, more many languages the better. In my specific case, that made a difference. I could speak fluently English and Italian. I've been living in Switzerland, so I also speak French. All that, of course, English is essential. We all agree that most of the work we do on a daily basis is in English. But if you can speak more languages, that will help you get to other places in the world, because our market is a global one, it's a global market. And people like that you can talk to them in the native language. Apart from having English as a common language, if you can add up other languages, that's better. In my case, I can speak in different languages. I had a boss, José Juan, a great friend of mine, with whom I worked for many years, and he always said the same thing. He couldn't speak fluently any language, but he could, however, communicate in many of them. He's a great communicator, so if you can communicate, if you can get to other person, in my case, English, French, Italian, Spanish, and Catalan, which is also a native tongue for me. Of course, it is essential. The first day in college, I will say this to my students: you won't be good sports lawyer unless you're a good lawyer. And the other thing is that you have to learn languages in a fluent way. I studied law. I don't know why, actually, but I studied European law, and I was required to study 3 languages, and this was very useful for me. German, I understand it. I don't feel able to speak it, but I can understand it. But however, English and French. And now I am studying Portuguese. But it's a personal matter. I don't think I will be able to speak it fluently, but at least in order to communicate myself, it's also a challenge. I fully agree. My case is not like theirs. They speak very many languages. I only speak English and Spanish. It's true that in a firm there are people who speak French, others who speak Italian, German, Chinese even. However, it is true that the most important thing for English, you have to be fluent in English. You have to master it. You may all agree on this, Juan too, because he's more experienced regarding arbitration and being in the court. You have to know arbitration procedures. There are many topics. You can discuss things. I mean, you have to master all the topics, and you have to be able to express yourself in a proper way. You have to be able to convince others. So languages are essential because we are lucky enough to work in an international sector. I always say this in my classroom. Our activity has no frontiers. That's the way it is here. So we are working in an international environment. I'd like to say that we have 4 Spanish lawyers here, and we have cases all over the world. And it is a great satisfaction and great news to know that Spanish lawyers, we have the ability in order not just to speak other languages, but to attract other customers. When you see that English clubs have Spanish lawyers, Chinese clubs have Spanish lawyers, South American clubs have Spanish lawyers, then you realize that we have done a great selling job based on languages and knowledge. The knowledge that we are top-level lawyers. This morning I said at the CAS that sometimes it is complicated to decide in the FIFA proceedings or UEFA proceedings. It's difficult to do a good job when you have a different language in front of you, but we think farther away. We're always ready. We have to be better prepared, and this is important. Anglo-Saxon people don't normally speak other languages. We are lucky enough because we can speak up to 4 or 5 languages. This is not always the case. In arbitration proceedings, for instance, British people, maybe you have a different idea or view on this, but a CAS arbitration case, according to continental law, for instance, British people may speak great, but they have a clear disadvantage. The difference in law is the way of explaining a case is different in a court in Switzerland. Maybe I'm more used to working in a continental environment. If the panel is not strictly British, we all know the case of a very well-known lawyer. Well, he's Irish, but it's very difficult to understand him. And the panel, as it wasn't all the members of the panel, as they weren't British, except Lucas, who can understand him, we cannot get to understand him. Many years there, so finally I got something. Yeah, but this is a problem for non-English native panels. Also with Israeli people, they make a joke, which is the most spoken language at the CES. English. They say, but English. The truth is that, well, we cannot call it bad English, but it is not a very accurate English. And arbitrators, they want to understand you, they want to convey the message. And sometimes it is easier to do it in this way. I am not saying that this is an advantage, but at the end of the day, this is kind of a balance. There are more positive things. Accents, they also play the role. When understanding it can be tricky. So you have to speak in a fluent way, and being able to use grammar and vocabulary. There can be fully British people who don't have that capacity or ability. I don't know if they study Roman law. I love it. These Latin words or terms, they have problems with dealing with them. And languages are different. A guy from Edinburgh doesn't speak as any other person in London. So if you speak in a correct way, with a good grammar, good vocabulary, you will be understood and you will be better positioned. This Anglo-Saxon style, you have to take what's good. The cross-examination they do is very good, but it's not useful for continental law. They ask a question, blah, blah, blah. Isn't that true? When they do this, I say, listen, you're asserting something. Please ask something, ask a question. You have to ask something, really, because I can speak for 10 minutes and then say, is that right? That's not the way. As Javier said, don't be afraid of English, the language, English, or a British person who is in front of you. 80% of cases in CAS are in English, 15% in Spanish, and among 5 or 7% in French. The figures are there, English is there, and you have to be able to master it. Here we have questions which are difficult to answer. When do you start working and when do you finish working? I will answer, I don't know when I begin and I don't know when I finish. It depends on the day. I arrive at 7 a.m. to Madrid, coming from Senegal, then I went to Valencia. Today I'm here, tomorrow I'll travel to Paris. It depends. And there are other days where you are in your office, out of hours, and there are other days you are out the whole day. I won't ask you which is your schedule, but do you agree with me? Yes or no? Because we don't have, proper working hours. It's impossible to state a unique working hours. Instead, I like to take my kid to school when I have the chance, but this doesn't mean that you haven't been working before. That's what we said before. when you have many customers all over the world, this also has an impact. I work very much with South America. What does this mean? At 11 p.m. you may have an urgency or a call you have to do or to make, and you have to be there because you are providing a service. Well, the question is rather, in my case, and this is a problem, I'm not proud of this. I am convinced that you think the same thing as me. The lack, you have to be able to unplug. You don't have to be the whole day with your cell phone or your computer, or even weekends. We all have to sleep, we all have to rest, but you never disconnect properly. I remember at the beginning of my career, at the very beginning, when I was just starting, in summer, I went a month on holidays. I took my cell phone and I left there, and I went to Panama and Costa Rica. And when I got back to my office, I saw a letter, I opened it, and it was kind of a reflection of my boss back then. And he said, you should rethink your job. If you want to be a civil servant, if you want to disconnect, be a civil servant, do other thing. But if I wanted to become a lawyer and got to certain professional objectives, disconnecting does not work. I don't know if this is the case. And I say this because I've learned in this system. This is how I grew up, and this is how I am still a lawyer today. So I don't know if I'm proud of this or not, but this is a reflection to do because we work kind of in this way more or less.
I prefer not to think about the total amount of working hours I have. What is your usual working hours? I don't have any kind of established working hours. During the evenings, if I can, I go to the gym, if possible, just for mental health, for my mental health. But during the weekends, if I'm needed, because one of the things that Javier told me is that you have to teach your clients. So we also need to have the proper criteria to identify what is actually urgent, because I have clients that during the weekends start to feel a certain anxiety about things. If I know something is urgent, I'll pay attention, I'll solve the issue, I'll do whatever I have to do, no matter what I'm doing in my personal life. But I remember I was in the beach in Cadiz, and I was just having a mojito, a smoke, and then I realized that I had to do some calculations because a transfer was going to be made. That was back when Torres went to the UK. So obviously, that's what you have to do. You throw everything out and you focus on what you're doing. At that time, I was at the very early beginnings of my career. But I've considered this a lot. My dad is a surgeon. And I've seen my dad, his job is the most relevant one. His job is to save lives. And he has said, it's 1st of August, I will not work till September, and I'll do it with a tan. Too much. So sometimes I think maybe we just got really badly accustomed to these. I don't tend to take holidays on August, during August, because I already know that that's not actually going to be holidays. My clients, myself, and my relatives will become very anxious about the situation. So, okay, I'll book my holidays on September because proceedings will already be in place and things will be already working on. But you try to coexist. A peaceful coexistence will be what I will define it. A moment when you try to make things as normal as possible, but to rethink it, not just for our own sake. Tomorrow I have the assembly of the Spanish Athleticism Federation, and I will have to be working during a Sunday. And at 9 it starts, and it will not conclude till 3. And what are they doing? Well, they're discussing. But I have to be there. I have to be there. And if there is a championship in Dubai, Well, it doesn't matter the time, the hour, the time zone. I will have to be there. It could be to deal with something regarding a medal or anything else. You have to be there. So I'm not sure if that's something that happens only to us because we're specialized in things where during a weekend there might be an issue. This has happened, help us or whatever. But I think in general, lawyers face the same issue. And connecting to what Maite has said, the first day I started to work, before I started in Garrigues, the first day I was at my job, I was working with the vice director for a reason. I don't know what. And on that first day, I did basically nothing. I was just there. They were not giving me anything to do, any chores to do. I was just sitting there at a desk. And at 8 in the evening, I saw that founding member to leave. And I said, okay, I'll go home. And then the next day he called me to his office and said, I went out, I came back, it was 9 and you were not there. So that has to be the last time that you leave earlier than I do. And so that connects with everything that has been said so far. And it's also connected to what Juan said, in the sense that it's not just that you need to work, and Spanish lawyers tend to do that a lot, but you need to gain customers. You need to be there for them. You need to get projects. So in order to do so, you need to be fairly orderly in the way you work. When I'm in Madrid, I'm very German-minded. My wife said, if I receive a message that you have been kidnapped, I will know if it's true or not really fast, because you're always where you have to be at the same time every day. So there's absolutely no mistake in there. So sometimes I receive emails or calls at night or even after midnight, and I take them on. And I always have summers with 1 or 2, and when my kids are always thinking about past summers, they're always, oh, that was the summer when this or that player did that or happened this. They always remember the memories in that regard. I have 4 kids. Well, they're already adults, but for that time, I always made an effort to have dinner with my children. I will continue working after the dinner, but I will have that to keep a certain sense of normalcy in that lack of normalcy, if you like. I have some anecdotes similar to the ones you had. For example, it was a Sunday. I was in the office just picking up some documents and some files, and it was 10 in the morning, and I had a call. It was a landline call, and I immediately just picked up the phone. And it was a client. And I thought it was going to be my wife saying, you're late for lunch. But no. It was a client. It was like, what do you need? And they were like, but are you working? Yes, but it's a Sunday. Yes. Why have you called me? What has happened? Well, just in case, just to see what happens. So every hour, half an hour, or 2 hours, I check the email. But when I'm doing these kind of things during the weekends, I turn my phone off and just turn it on every hour or every 2 hours to check emails. And my father-in-law told me a few years ago that urgency is always relative. In the morning, you might have a notice saying urgent, and you can get anxious, and then your secretary brings you another note that says very urgent, and then an hour later you get another one that is extremely urgent, and you keep on putting them aside because the urgent thing has already been solved by itself. The very urgent is on the way to be solved. Nothing is that urgent, actually. Real urgencies are very few, and you have to be able to identify them. But sometimes it's just urgent because the client decides it's urgent. So you need to train, you need to educate your client so that they will know that sometimes it's not an option. Last night at 11, a client called, but my phone was off. What happened? This is a team from Algeria, and they were playing in the CAF Cup. the African Confederation Cup and the semi-final match, and I already knew that something was probably going amiss because the Morocco team was going to wear specific jerseys and things. I don't know if that was meant to give offense to Algeria because they were included in the jerseys what they consider the unofficial map of Morocco that has already been recognized by 15 countries because it includes Sahara Desert as well, and others recognize the Sahrawi Republic. And one of those is Algeria. So they were not allowed to enter. They were retained in the airport. The jerseys were taken away from them. They were seized from them. And they called me and said, what should we do? This is not urgent. First of all, because we don't have a judge ruling in that regard. And there will be a sanction. And they might decide in the sanction that they might lose the match, or they might be eliminated from that from the cup matches in that moment. So we'll have to see what the court will rule, and we'll make the decision from there. It was not that urgent. It was not that urgent to call us at 11 at night. You can do whatever you need to do in the next morning. At the same time, you need to be able to manage this urgency. You need to be very German-like, German-minded in this regard. Why? Because I have my old paper agenda where I just basically indicate what I have to do. For example, I'm going to Paris tomorrow. I have 6 meetings tomorrow, another 5 and the next day. When I go to Argentina, it says, well, I'll have my breakfast, then 5 or 6 meetings, then lunch, then another 5 or 6 meetings, then dinner, everything well established and organized. And then things just happen. The surprises happen, and you need to make sure that there is a certain distance between you and the client so that you can keep your own agenda. I do take my holidays during August, and sometimes I've had to run to get to the KACS because it was something happening there, and at the same time my wife's birthday, and if it's really urgent, well, I did it. And like with Neymar case, I had to do that. I have to go running back to the court arbitration for sport, and my kids also remember that was the summer when this happened, or that was the summer when that other thing happened. When you're younger, you get quite anxious about all these things, and you need to grapple to get as many clients as possible. But right now, what we're trying to do is, okay, these are our clients. I'm going to pay a lot of attention to the details. I'm going to travel a lot, but also I'm going to be here with 4, 5, 6 clients. Let's see how many of these will become constant clients. But I'm also more in control of the situation. When you're younger, the ones that are already in the business, but also you that are here listening to us, you will be more you will be paying attention more to the client than to your own life, and that happens. And Lucas is aware of that. And well, I was not fired at that time. I was just told that that could happen if I continue in that sense. I received similar warnings. They told me if you want to have holidays, you should work for a realtor or a real estate office. That would be the option if you want holidays. But we're international lawyers. An international lawyer needs to be always there. But I am not. I might be the last of the Mohicans, but I don't have a WhatsApp. I don't. You're the only person I send SMS. Yes, and mails. You're the only person in the world that I still send text messages. Well, WhatsApp is not necessary. It's the tool of the devil, so that you have to be constantly there. And then there's the group chats, the worst, especially family group chats and friends group chat. It's even worse when you have a contract and you receive a photocopy, 20 pages, 20 photos made with the papers on top of the knees of the person sent to you through WhatsApp. It's like the amount of money this contract entails, and you're sending me these horrible captures. More questions that I also that come from my own experience. Do you read sports newspapers and magazines? Do you watch sports television and radio programs? Do you love those kind of things? So after so many years working, you are not such great fans as you were when you were younger. I started in sports law because I love sports, and I still love sports. I still love it. So for many years, I devote my time to read sports newspapers, to watch and to listen to television and radio shows. And I lost a bit of that spark, if you like. I am still interested. I still follow the news cycle because it's part of my job. But I don't know if that has happened to you, that Sasasu is not there anymore. This a bit of the spark of the magic that is lost. I don't want you to lose that Sasasu yourselves. I want you to keep it because you love sports, you love the law, you want to be part of this world. It's a wonderful world. But once you're here for a period of time, part of the magic, it's eroded. And also, half of what you see in the news is a lie. It's fake news. 90% published is fake news. So I don't want to be that, but I know when I read things that this is a lie. This is not true. So I try to keep myself aware of everything that happens, well informed and updated. So I have a briefing every week with information from different newspapers and independent sources, and I read that briefing every week to know a little bit more about the main areas of interest of what has been happening or might happen. But this part of that magic is lost. It's lost. I have to admit that I've always loved it. And I've never told anyone this, but I'm going to do it here. How did I start in sports law? When I get to the Javier Tebas office, I had barely no experience, and I had only been working as a procedural lawyer. And I was helping with logistics with the driver, Javier's driver. And every Monday we had coffee together and talk about the matches of the weekend, how the Madrid had done, and so far and so forth. And Alfonso, this driver, I've been probably working 6 months already there, but I've never met Javier at that time. And he went and told Javier, do you know that new girl you have? She knows a lot about football. You should give her something to do with it. And after that, he gave me that file of the Malaga Football Club. It was a UEFA matter, and it was a Friday, and I had to prepare it for Monday. And I've never worked that many hours as that weekend, where I had to have a sports law accelerated intensive course. My love for it has not been reduced. I still love football. I still love going. I was going to say going to stadiums, not so much stadiums, not maybe that, but I still love it. That's true. I still enjoy it. But it's true, and this is always funny, now that Lucas mentioned it, because I still listen to the radio shows, the sports radio shows, and when I'm reading something, I'm always like, but what are you saying is not true. This is something that I'm involved in, and this is not true. Or, for example, when the transfer period is open, this person is negotiating the enrollment, and I was like, no, this is not the case. They are not negotiating that. You're not getting the things right. And sometimes when I talk with my students, it's like, don't use us and Marca as a source for the law matters, because you need to identify proper sources. And I find it funny, but the truth is that I read them, but no, I'm not reading, actually. I'm listening to the radio shows more than anything. But I do read a lot of articles on sports law, and that's something that you should keep on doing, because I still enjoy it a lot. So I think that I'm a bit of a weirdo here, because I haven't lost the magic. And sometimes when you're an advisor for some sports, I've been advising the Athleticism Federation, and I've never been interested in that sport. I have no idea about that. I have to study every single time to know when we're talking about fences or we're talking about standardization or, for example, all the hurdles. And, for example, in motorbikes, when we are doing things, we need to understand these different elements of the wheel. And I don't have all that information, but I keep on studying. I'm not obsessed with watching sports events every single day. I watch some matches, but not all of them. And some teams. There is a specific team that I love. Well, others can be, but I love Cádiz. That's true. Well, a bit like you were mentioning before, I don't read the sports newspapers. I don't listen to the radio shows as well. A bit due to the same reasons my colleagues have mentioned. There's not enough information, there's not a lot of adequate information, and there's information everywhere. We are surrounded by it, inundated by it, so you get all that updated information from all the channels. You can use social media, but you can get all that information from many other options. I don't know, maybe because I'm growing older, so I prefer to listen to something else that is not sports. But it's true. I don't pay that much attention anymore. Now, as a fan, I was a fan of the Real Madrid when I was working here. I lost a bit of that emotion, maybe because I was watching the match with my mind thinking about the potential matters that we'll have to deal with, and that changed my perspective. But now I can finally sit down and watch the match. Like, for example, Lucas and I have had some hearings, but I have suffered. How can you suffer after this week being a fan of the Real Madrid? I'm a fan of the Barcelona, and I had suffered this week, but you haven't suffered at all. So what are you talking about? That was a great week for you. I suffer, not you. I mean, last week was terrible. But he suffers. But then he enjoys it. My wife suffers a lot more than I do because she's a fan of the Athletic. It's like, I suffer, but I win. You suffer, and that's it. But isn't that the case that when you're watching something, an event, a competition, or you're reading, because I love radio, so I don't watch television a lot, but I'm listening to the radio everywhere. So, okay, you're watching a match or you're listening to the radio, and you are like, oh my God, I'll have to work with this tomorrow. And that's true, that happens. So half of your mind is already thinking about what you will have to deal with. There has been an incident, oh my God, that's going to be mine. There has been this issue with, I have to, already your mind is thinking about what you're going to be doing about that. You see things from a different point of view.
Radio shows are the same as written press. Well, I came back home Sundays evenings with radio, sports shows in the car. I'm really addicted to these shows. More than information as such, I like to listen to the games, to the matches, and when I listen to something, I say, oh, this will be a mess tomorrow. When you are focused on, specifically on the sports law, for instance, Valencia CF, well, I suffer more than them. But now I'm in the next phase. I'm in a nirvana phase. A question about yellow card. If we're going to appeal, that's what a newspaper asked me. And I said, this is professional secret. And the journalist told me, okay, if you don't give an answer, if I cannot give a scoop, I will publish a lie. Then what I do, I try to get to know results. Every day, I see results in a thing which is called my scores: tennis, basketball, football, badminton, whatever. Sports where I have clients. And yesterday night, I saw that the USM Algeria and Berkane Morocco was suspended. Why? You are like the Maldini of sports law. Maldini, who is a sports commentator here in Spain. And if Olympique de Marseille plays all the Europa Cup matches, I'm aware of it, home or away. So, you know, you pay attention to the moment when they play. But back in the days, many years ago, there were shows Saturday mornings, the afternoon, in the night, in the evenings, 2 or 3 channels maximum. That was 15 hours of sports, and I watched everything of it. And I still love sports, but I pick up better. Olympics, swimming, I watch everything of it. I'll tell you an anecdote about the press, which was funny because when I was working here in Real Madrid, one of the first things, I don't know if it was a Real Madrid-Barça or Real Madrid played against Barça, but there was an action, a move where Roberto Carlos takes a ball out of the goal line, but using the hand. He saw a red card, but we had to appeal that because in the meeting we had to do that. I said, well, this clearly it's a reflex action. There's no will to do that. And they accepted what I said. And there was a discussion created, even on TV. I got home and there was a debate on TV about this reflex action. Of course, he kept that red card, but everyone on the press, newspapers, TV, talking about that, this reflex action. And this was me. Piojo López, a player in Valencia, he spoke with the Argentinian accent, and when he was sent off, the 4th referee was there when he was leaving the field, and he said, you're shit. And the 4th referee told the main referee, he put it on the record, and he was sanctioned with 4 matches. I appealed it because you are, he said, you all are, using sos in Argentinian accent. Because the 4th referee was not an authority back in that moment. And I redirected the message only to the 4th referee. The following year, the 4th referee became an authority in the match. But in those days, you could say that to him. It was on TV, on the radio, everywhere. Speaking in Argentinian or Spanish is not the same. That's what we achieved to do. But these are things, this is the interesting thing. Sports law is alive. We're lucky because this is not an obsolete thing, an old thing which is always the same or similar. Of course, there are new crimes that could be done. In sports law, there's always something new. That's the good thing about sports law. Here, which is a sport that you like the most, apart from football? And do you practice any sport? Apart from sitting on the couch, watching sports on TV? My favorite sport, which is not football, is skiing. I've always loved skiing. I've had an injury and I've not been able to ski for a while, so I do other things, swimming, chess, that's it. It's a very risky sport. But basically, yeah, that's why I say my way of letting the stress out of my body. I've also gone into boxing. I'm taking boxing lessons, but mainly my way of channeling this is going to the gym twice, 3 times a week, and swimming at least once a week. But don't you have a favorite sport apart from skiing that I follow on TV? Oh yeah, of course, on TV, Formula 1, tennis, basketball, either NBA or FIBA EuroLeague. Those are my favorite sports. But as I said before, the Olympic Games, I do a complete follow-up of the whole Olympic Games. But back in the days, I was a total sports consumer. Now I try to organize myself a little bit because I work a lot and I don't have so much time to watch sports. Sports law is a passion, sports is a passion, so we're still passionate about sports, either in a written way, watching it on TV. So one way or another, we are all in the same line. I love tennis, Maite. I love tennis very much. I love watching tennis very much, and I really love practicing boxing for 15 years. I really love it. I love watching it. It is a sport that I find it fascinating, very comprehensive sport. To me, it is the ideal sport, given the circumstances. I practice it less than I should. I try to practice it 3 or 4 times a week to train at least 1 hour. And some weeks I find it truly impossible. And I also practice CrossFit. Tennis is fascinating, but I know which are my limits. I've never tried. I had the chance once that a paddle world champion could teach me to play paddle, and he really said, okay, do another thing. Boxing is quite technical though, but what I really like, if I don't watch boxing, I will be watching tennis instead. Well, sports, I liked watching them, almost all of them. I prefer football, basketball and tennis. And I practice sports as a vital necessity on a daily basis. Even if I'm working, I know cities because I like running and I run every day because this allows me to face the day in a proper way. Early in the morning at 6 p.m., no matter what, no matter the day, and it's good for me to organize my day. I also like riding bikes, I also like swimming. Mental and physical hygiene. Okay, so I will say I choose the hotels where I go, taking into account the pools they have. Swimming is my favorite sport, and breakfast too. In Senegal there was a swimming pool and swimming pool. Swimming pool is like running, but more relaxing for your knees. You get to the end, you go back and forth. But people say, running, you can think. I don't want to think. I just want to swim and free up my mind. In my office, I have a boxing picture. Boxing, when we talk about Super League and EuroLeague in classroom, these are different competitions. Boxing, I could name you all the champions in all categories. But now that's no longer the case. Now there are 4 or 5 different associations, confederations, and they only gather in Las Vegas with Don King. He was 94 years old. He's still there. And that's where you get to know the real champion. This is a very long philosophical discussion we have to do. Why do we like sports. We like to watch sports because we want to see champions. If you have 5 different champions, that's what I say about EuroLeague. We don't know who the best is. It is as if there were 5 different Olympic Games. We need a real only one champion, because otherwise you will lose your interest. The Olympic Games in Olympia didn't have second or third positions. There was only one Olympic champion, and the others didn't win. That's the way it should be. So I play boxing when I can, swimming when I'm at home, or where I am at a hotel, like in Senegal. In Lausanne, the CES, my hotel has a pool too, otherwise I wouldn't be there. On top of that, I don't know, when there was this flower in Mexico, you two were there, you two, I think. I remember you were at 5 a.m. in the gym, and we were all there, and I said, I don't know if this is good or not. There was Marcos Mota too. I arrived at 7 a.m. just for swimming. But we were all there. What's the message? We are sports lawyers, but we are also sports people. We love sports. This passion around sports. There are no silos here. You can be more interested in watching some specific games. We have children or grandchildren. We don't have so much time, but we have to be sports people, youth sports people. In a youth sports meeting in Canary Islands, I took Gianni Infantino there when he was just a UEFA lawyer. So what are we? Youth sports people. In every sense, in the practical sense, in the personal sense, visually too. Well, if you weren't a sports lawyer, what would you have liked to become professionally? 5 persons. I wanted to be El Zorro. Or 5 fighters. El Zorro, I don't know what would have been. It was clear for you that you wanted to become a lawyer. Yeah, I wanted to become a lawyer. Otherwise, I would have done something related to communication. I like this. The part that I enjoy the most in our job is hearings, the trial. I would have done something related to, such as communication or being in touch with the public. But at the end of the day, I had the chance to find something that matched my abilities, my character, and I've been able to develop this job. And this was very lucky for me because I love what I do. I enjoy doing what I do. And at the end of the day, I get up every morning and I'm happy when I go to work. You don't have any remorse about missing any chance. For instance, being a tango dancer. A tango dancer is not within my capabilities, but other things too in my family. We all love cooking. My brother, he's a chef, and he has a restaurant, and I love it. I love cooking, but I don't know if I would enjoy having a restaurant. So I am satisfied with the way I developed my professional career, and this is something good, being able to say that you're happy in your life with what you do. It's very funny. If you ask this to my grandmother said I should have become an artist. That's what she said to me. I insist. I didn't go to the law world in a vocational way. I never wanted to become a lawyer. It's true that I knew that I didn't want to be a doctor, which was a tradition in my family. So I found communitary law with languages that raised my attention, but I didn't want to become a lawyer. And now I find it great. I remember very well my father, during my first year in law college, he kept asking me, do you want to change? Do you want to study a different thing? Are you really sure? I have to say that from my second year, that's when I discovered civil law. With Roman law, I said, I'm going to like this very much. Civil law, I really enjoy it. And with procedural law, I said, this is my thing. My doctor wanted me to become, if not a doctor, a notary public. But I have been very bad at it. That's annoying. And now, honestly, I can't imagine being myself working in a different field. I can say this now with perspective, so no regrets, no remorse, not at all. I'm so lucky because I have many friends with a clear law vocation and they are really burned out. They would really like to quit. I have to acknowledge, of course, there are some days that you cannot work more, but if I have to do something, I do it very excited. I understand that it should be very difficult to work on something that you don't like at all. So I feel very fortunate. I complained to my grandmother, saying, I work for so many hours, and my grandma said, you should have studied something more related to women, a nurse, a teacher. Of course, I complain some days, but it is true that you cannot complain about work. I don't see myself doing other things. Well, being rich and millionaire, probably that, yes, but in a different job, no. Javier, for me it was clear that I wanted to become a lawyer. From the very beginning, I wanted to be a professional lawyer, but what else? A pilot. If not a lawyer, a rally pilot, a driver, or a Formula 1 driver, driving. At the end of the day, I don't follow Formula 1 very much, but if you ask me, what would you like to do? Going from here to Paris with a supercar without radars, but not a taxi driver. Just drive a taxi. No. I would like to go to drive very fast. A taxi doesn't go fast. A rally driver, something that I liked to do, other than lawyer. Marc Genet, he's a test driver in Porsche. Linking this being millionaire with what you like. They've released a new Porsche model with a value of 6 million euros that can only be driven from a track to a circuit. You drive it there and it goes back on the track. All of them have been sold. But he loves to go from here to Moscow, from Moscow to Helsinki, with turns and overtaking from time to time. Yeah, that's something that I like. When I was a child, I wanted to become El Zorro, and when I grew up, I wanted to become a war reporter, a journalist going to the war. This is what I do now, more or less, but I couldn't because my mother was a widow and I didn't have money to pay my studies in a private college in Valencia. I had to work in Valencia to feed my family. So I said, what's most similar to journalism? Well, law. You talk, you think, you discuss, you travel. So this is what I did. What would I have been otherwise? A journalist, but not a sports journalist. a real journalist, going to Afghanistan, Israel, Ukraine. I would have liked to be there. I still can do it.
Bueno, seguimos. Esto ha sido cosas personales.
These were more personal topics, if you like. But let's talk about personal plus sports law. Now, the next question, it's a complex one. I have to warn you. I was wondering whether I should use it or not, because you need to choose, and choosing is never easy. So of all the people that you've met in the sports world, who has shocked you in any way? The biggest shock. You cannot say my name, I'm sorry about that. Now I'm going to focus this question in a specific way, because it has a sense. In our job, we've met a lot of big names in the sports world, people that give you certain emotions, but I think about an athlete that has really created an impact on my life. And I'm going to mention someone that you might not believe me when I say who has impacted me more. But my first year, when I was only 24 years of age, I was working in a case. It was a dispute between Messi. Adidas and Nike were fighting to get the rights of Messi. So Messi at that time, he was only 17. He was just very young, but he was already creating himself a big name, and he was in the Barcelona, and he was just 17 years of age at the time. And I was very lucky to meet him at that moment. And you tend to think, well, Messi, he seems to be like very shy, looking at the floor, lacking charisma, that you might identify in other big names. But the truth is that when I was only 24, we were in a room full of lawyers. This is his kid with his agent, his father. It was a complex situation, a matter that had to do with the commercialization of the image rights, but also had to do with sports, and everyone was saying what has to be done, and he was going to be relevant. What he has to say had to be relevant, and I was like, imagine this guy outside of his turf, looking at the floor, at his shoes. He's probably completely lost in his own mind. We're going to be destroyed in court. And it was the opposite, precisely. What I noticed is that his head, well, he's no longer a kid anymore. He's a veteran, professional, not a 17-year-old. But what I felt at the time, that he was incredible at court, because he understood everything that he had to do. He was giving really clear answers and responses to the questions. He was doing the things the best he could, and he was doing them correctly. And it was something that it was shocking for me. I was 24, he was 17, but he was already someone who was going to be different to the rest. The minds of these high-performance athletes are not only people that physically do amazing things, but the way in which they think, the way their brain works, helps them. So he might not be great at public speaking, he might not exude great charisma like all the big names in this level, but he's extremely intelligent, and his brain goes fast. He has to make decisions in milliseconds in the match, in the pitch, and therefore he's able to do so outside the pitch as well, in something as complex as a sports law. He's not Nelson Mandela. He's not someone that has to do that kind of things, but it was something that was quite shocking for me, to see someone that seems very shy, very uncomfortable outside of the pitch, has that possibility of thinking so fast and going with what is need to be done. Well, it depends on what can shock ones. I will have to say Rafa Nadal, I think. I have not worked with him, but I think that He's exactly just what you see. What you see is what you get. But in sports law, you can also be a lawyer if we're talking about sports. Well, many lawyers have been of huge impact in my life. I've had a huge effect in my life. But for me, Rafa Nadal has always been his strength, the way in which, because he's also very shy and introvert as well in many ways, but he's amazing in so many respects. But just as has been said about Messi, I was quite impressed by Iker Casilla, because Iker is not only a great athlete, a great football player, but he has shown us a great example of how to rebrand yourself, and now he's basically working on a startup to promote new entrepreneurship projects with apps and other applications of the sport laws, using technology for that. And he has learned how to get out of, I was a great athlete, and now I'm no longer that, but I need to do something else with my life. And aside from that, he's also, in my opinion at least, one of the greatest human beings I've met. He trusts lawyers a lot. And aside from that, I haven't seen that many people in a court during a hearing talking so confident, testifying with simplicity, but with a lot of confidence. And I remember I took Iker to a court hearing, and everyone in the way was stopping him. He's extremely nervous, because when you're going to a court hearing, even the lawyers are nervous when you get in the courtroom. I don't know about you, but I still feel the nerves. And I don't want to see the day I don't feel the nerves before starting. He was absolutely out of his mind at that time, but he nevertheless stopped. He talked with everyone. He took photos with everyone. And the judge came and said, "Can I take a selfie? Will you sign 3 autographs for me?" And he said, "Of course." He was kind with everyone, absolutely kind. "Thank you, thank you." No, thank you. Do you want another photo? That selfie looks horrible. Let's make another one. I wouldn't have the strength to do that. And I think that tells you a lot about who he is as a professional athlete and as a person. Well, after Lucas talking about Messi, because he's now not longer in the Barcelona, and Barcelona is suffering from that lack of Messi in the team. Well, there's a lot of people, not only athletes, but also people in the law environment. But for me, I think Ronaldo Nazario de Lima would be the key figure for me. We've been working with him since he was playing in Barca, and someone that has accompanied you for so many years. And he's quite smart. He's also been able to rebrand himself. He was not only fast playing, he was also fast as a businessman. And I'm going to tell you a story. Last year, I'm not sure if you saw Phenomenal, the documentary film that tells a bit about all the issues that he had with his injuries and in the different world championships, and when there was going to be the launch on the premiere, he told me, "You have to come to the premiere, you have to come." "But it's in England, I cannot go there, I'm there working." "No, you have to come, my daughter is coming." "No, you have to come, you have to come, this is important for me. Bring your daughter with you, that's okay." In the end, he called me again and said, "You have to come. No doubt about it. You have to be here. It's the premiere of this documentary. You've been here by my side throughout this period. You have dealt with all of these matters. You can bring your daughter, your son." "I don't have a son, but it doesn't matter. Bring anyone you want. But you have been part," and therefore he has also been part of my career. And he is a kind person. He pays attention to details. He's someone who came from the favelas, from a low-class income neighborhood, but he made it to where he is today. In my case, I think Juan P. Solín He was a different football player, Juan Pisorin, and in many ways he was smart, very smart, but also extremely kind, and he writes books and poems and articles, and everything he gets from what he writes, he gives it to a NGO for kids in Argentina. That's not the only thing that he does. He wants to help others, and he's always been a great, great human being. He's a great athlete, and he's able to earn a lot of money to give back to his community. But for that reason precisely, he's always been someone that has impressed me enormously. So Sorin would be my most impressive athlete. Let's go to the next question. This is now like, who you love more, mom or dad? Which has been your most important case as a lawyer? The one that you win, a victory, or even a loss, if you like, if you consider a loss unimportant. Well, I tend to forget losses, actually. Well, I tend to say always, there's no compassion here, no mercy at all. Well, because I'm a small team, you won't fight me, but usually when you win, you're happy for a minute, and then you move on. But when you lose, you are unhappy for 2 minutes, and then you have to move on as well. And that's fundamental. Let's not forget about that rule. You can remember victories or losses, but now, what's your biggest success in your professional career as a sports lawyer? I like to celebrate victories. When you win, you celebrate. Just like a team wins, you celebrate when you win a case. You go out, you enjoy it, you have a lunch, a dinner, you have a couple of drinks, something that breaks the routine, you've done things as they should be done, and you have to celebrate that. But that's it. But when you have a loss, usually they become a burden for me. I have that feeling that there's always something there staying in me when we lose. And I try to learn something from that as well, from our failures. But going back to victories, maybe I think that there are some victories that might be more relevant for the media, cases that made it to the newspapers, that you win and have become very relevant for a team that will continue on a European Championship or will retain a victory or a title. But I still remember the first victory, my first case in the CAS. That was a turning point for my career, and it was in Switzerland, and I will always remember the client. It was Racing de Santander against a team from Israel regarding the training rights of a specific player. I've never been there at a courtroom before. It was my first case, and going to the CAS in Switzerland, my first case, and I remember being in front of the arbitration court with judges from Israel, Norway, and Malta, and I had to do it all in English, and I was extremely happy by the result. And it was, again, a turning point because I started working in the CAS afterwards because they saw me there, and when there was a vacancy, they called me and said, well, you can opt for this vacancy, and I spent the best professional 5 years of my life there. And so for me, it was a great opportunity. Maite, same case? No, not the same case, but it's also the first one I had. And you were there. No, Juan was there. I cannot remember it. It was a case, Mallorca versus Hertha of Berlin. And there was an absolutely hysterical, out of his mind German guy there. Yes, because they speak German. And it feels that when you speak German, you're constantly on the brink of invading Poland or the Czech Republic. But it feels like we're right. And because we're right, we're going to be shouting in German. And I was laughing. Oh, you were laughing. I was unable. I was scared out of my mind. It was my first hearing. And this was the hearing, the anecdote that I always tell. They told me when I was getting into the building, they were like, no, secretaries cannot get in. This is a private hearing. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm one of the lawyers, I'm not the secretary. It was my first hearing. And I remember Juan was already top of the tops. And I was there and I was like, what am I doing here? Did you win? Yes, of course we won. But I was there and I remember Carrat, Jota were there. And there was someone else. I don't remember who was the third member of the panel with Carrar and Jota. I cannot remember the name of the third one. I can only remember the Germans on the other side. The German guy was completely out of his mind. And I will always remember the last one also before being became an arbitrator, because I was appointed arbitrator, and before that I was so happy because we won, because we lost with the FIFA. We had an appeal. It was a very complicated hearing. But if I have to remember one single element, there was this World Championship, and there was this athlete, and I was working with the Athletes Federation at that time. And it was not football. But he was this long jumper was sent off of the field, and we were of the track. And at the time, we had to create a set of options to appeal this decision so that he could get back his medal. And the athlete went to the hotel in tears, thinking he had lost the medal. And they called us and told us that he was going to get the bronze medal. And I started crying myself at that time, because it was during the evening. I called the athlete and I told the long jumper, you're going to get this medal, the bronze medal. And he was crying, I was crying. And it was the Spanish Federation. Yes, the Spanish Federation managed to do this, but I was part of that effort. So part of that medal, part of the joy that Orlando felt was caused by me, and that's something that we'll never forget. Javier, well, like in Lucas' case, I might remember now losses in different ways, because you have to reflect on them. You have to rethink them, because there's always moments when things don't work out. And sometimes you might think, what has been done wrong? What could I have done better? And that's a bit painful, but you can learn from that, and you can learn what's expected out of you. But if I have to think about one specific occasion, this might be one of my first wins, mainly because of the person related to this case, because he's someone who has also impressed me a lot. I had a double responsibility, because sometimes things get to you. There was this contract signed, you have to do this and that. But at the time, I have been already advising during the contract signing. And so when there's a problem afterwards, you feel double responsibility regarding with that. And it was the Besiktas in Turkey. It was a long process. And maybe for that reason, I was during the contract while it was signed, that I had to deal with everything that happened afterwards. We have all studied that case. It has been studied everywhere. Is it possible that you call me to ask me Sunday morning which would be the arbitrator that I will allocate to this case? There was something that happened there. It was one of the first cases that we've been working on, and we have Belov, one of the arbitrator, and there was an Italian lawyer. I don't remember the name, but before he got into his seat, he fell off on the floor. He fell on his face, and the arbitrator said, "Please, don't lose hope yet. things can go better. And it was it Mancini? Yes, it's true. He was trying to get on his seat, and he was like, no, no, don't give up, don't give up. Don't fall off your high horse. You can still make it. So Michael Belov, I think he's 80 years of age now. He's really old. But Michael Belov, yeah, he's the only. Well, he was the president, arbitrator, or chief arbitrator of that. But Daniel Ortega, for example, who included in the information in the arbitral award, he included my name and surnames, and he says that although he has made a great effort and has the skills required, I read that case. And there's another one. And I was like, I'm going to call him because look what they're saying about you, about that ruling, about that arbitration decision. And yeah, I haven't read the second one. I should have read it. Maybe it was a loss and that's why. But I'm going to give you an example, although I've been told to write a book about these things many times. But the truth is that I remember my wins. One was from football and one wasn't from football, was from badminton. In badminton, there is a Champions League. And so we had the Rinconada from Huelva. They won the Champions League against the French team. And they realized that there had been a player from Indonesia that had been playing illegally, because you should have been playing in the national federation team for 5 matches, but this player had been played in Malaysia and Indonesia instead of the matches in the National League. So the French discovered this, and they have started to, because, well, let's say that they have been faking it, if you like, faking it till they make it. And then I read the ruling, and they said, well, now, during the next 5 years, he will not be able to play, and then he will have to pay a really reduced sanction or penalty. And they said, well, we have a problem because we only have one sponsor, and they gave us 40,000 euros per month, and that's all the money that we get. We are the champions of the Champions League, but that's all the money we get, so we need their sponsor. So we checked the ruling, and the sanction says that anything that happens will allow you to do whatever you want to do. So I went to the CAS, and before that, I got a phone call. We went to Birmingham. There was a really important match, badminton match, and we reached an agreement. We lost the championship, but they decided to take that sanction and penalty out of us. So the president of the Federation of Indonesia came to thank us, because this was not a litigation in itself, but it was a way of finding a solution to the problem. And in football, this is also quite important, and it was quite personal for me.
I was on holidays in the Canary Islands in February, because French Liceu gave us holidays, and Roma called us. We have a problem. We've been sanctioned because Capello, the head coach, had grabbed someone's hairs. Batistuta kicked someone, and Lima, a Turkish Brazilian player, had kicked another one. So sports sanction. You have to play next match 300 kilometers away from Rome. And the first match of the next session was Roma Real Madrid. So, objective responsibility of the club. The players, X matches each, we managed to reduce the sanction to 2 of them, not Batistuta, but Totti and Lima. The sanction were reduced, and we won. So it was with UEFA, appeal against UEFA, And we didn't do it at UEFA. It was very small room. So we went to Geneva hotel. We were there for 5 hours, and we had to wait outside until the president, the chief arbitrator, the Swiss judge, together with a judge from Bulgaria and a British. And after 1 hour and a half, very nervous, the Roma lawyer, my friend Antonio Conte, another Roma lawyer, whose name I cannot remember, and me there waiting until the moment that when the chief arbitrator comes out, a very tall guy, very serious, German-Swiss judge, and he comes to us, takes a paper out, Mr. Crespo, bitte, and he begins to read, blah, blah, blah. Please say something specific. We were so very nervous, the 3 lawyers there, and the sanction has been modified, and this will be only an economic sanction. The first time we won a subject like this at UEFA. I cannot remember in sports, in other fields, yeah. How we had together, jumping, crying, the 3 of us. And the president was Sensi, a very complicated, tricky president. And he didn't pay my fees. I had to sue him and seize the championship rights at UEFA. And when I seized him, Sensi called me, he told me, "Lawyer, you are very brave. You have seized 8 million euros. We only owe you this. No, first pay to me, and then we will lift we will cancel the seizement, the seizure." So we were so happy for having got this incredible success for the very first time ever. Everything you can imagine was there. And those 2 guys were so happy because it was the first time in a sports law thing. So I remember this as if it was today. Jumping, crying, hugging each other. We won. Well, so, well, let's move on. Oh. The most uncomfortable situation in your professional life as a sports lawyer. So, what's this? I want to hide somewhere. Well, luckily there are not many situations like, well, tell me one at least. Yeah, I'm thinking, but there are not many. I would take this one, which is probably related to an uncomfortable moment I lived with a colleague. It was a situation which is not very normal, and on top of that, it's not a regular, a usual colleague in an environment we used. I mean, when these kind of things have happened to me, which I do, when you feel this uncomfortable, you can have a problem with a colleague due to the lack of knowledge or to the way of proceeding. I've even been threatened for that. It's difficult to find a moment because I try to forget these moments, and this confirms the exceptionality because it's very rare. It is true, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. Have you seen this guy again? Yeah, and our relation is better, but it's clear to me that there are some lines you cannot cross in this profession. And this is where I value the most, the code existing among colleagues, the way we should relate to each other. And in sports law, even more. Yeah, that's even more. because there are few of us and we can develop a relationship of friendship. The four of us, you and me, were in 2 hearings last week fighting each other, legally speaking, but above all there is a relationship of respect and friendship as with Juan, Ramon or Maite. So when you find situations like this, you feel yourself more sorry. And I don't take it personally because I know that this colleague has had some problems with you. Oh, so is that man. Okay, so I won't name him. But if you think about it, for you, this is not something personal, it's just the way he is. So generally speaking, this is the exception, it's not normal, but I felt uncomfortable due to the relationship between partners and colleagues. I have a similar thing with the same guy. No, not. I think it's not the same guy. I think I know who that one was. Well, sometimes I had nasty moments. I remember president of a first division club president. But going back to what you said regarding respect among lawyers and colleagues, I always say that this shark moment, being aggressive, I think it's an old-fashioned manner. You won't see that now. We get along very well. We have to fight in court, but then we're friends. But I had a really bad experience with another lawyer. He was defending an agent, I was defending a player. I told him, please do not threaten me. He lost, he called me to threaten me, I told him not to threaten me. And he accused me of a crime, directly. So I filed a deontology complaint so that this doesn't happen again. But it's a matter of respect only. And bad moments in hearings, when I say, oh my God, please, I like to hide somewhere. Yeah, this happened to me. I had a basketball ruling with a CAS Bulgarian judge. We didn't understand him, that hence the importance of languages, and he didn't understand us. And a hearing that could have lasted 2 hours, we were almost 7. I thought I was going to miss my plane. I was thinking I had to take the train to go to Geneva, take the plane. It was very nasty and uncomfortable. The hearing was really uncomfortable. I didn't know what else to do, what to say, what not to say. And bad moments, well, many. I mean, uncomfortable ones. This took place last month, the one when I filed this deontology complaint, and the hearing, I think that was the worst hearing ever in my life. I will remember this one for bad, but my whole life. Javier, well, I agree with you. Luckily, in our industry, most of us have a good relationship and we respect the existing codes, and this is nice. You can be fighting each other in a hearing and then you go out to drink a beer. But pay attention to customers, because if you sit together, yeah, but if you ask me about a moment related to our activity, which is uncomfortable, well, yes, and this is public. We were hacked because they were trying to find information from the industry, and it is true. You think you're trying to do things right, and given external circumstances, people is going after you. People are going after you. Some people didn't behave correctly, but I remember that moment when you have a difficult situation you have to face. Everything went okay. But if you ask me about a difficult, complicated situation related to our profession, we were hacked because we had information that was relevant. That's what I remember. That was kind of a warning for all of us. These things happen, and not only in certain industries. It can happen to us in a firm like yours, that you had measures in place to avoid that. I have 3 moments which are not comfortable. With that colleague I had some problems. I think it's the same guy. One which is a very strong one, and 2 funny, which are funny. The important one, the Wuhan Beijing team with a player from Paraguay. There were 3 arbitrators. I am with my customer, and the Chinese one with another Chinese person. He arrives and he speaks to talk. He begins to talk. And I say, Chief Arbitrator, if we have to translate every minute or minute and a half. And the Chief Arbitrator has said, you're right. And he says to the other Chinese, please, can you translate every minute or minute and a half, otherwise we cannot understand. The Chinese people look to each other, and the smallest one says, no, he's speaking in English. Oh, okay. Mr. Crespo, okay, yeah, please go ahead. That was uncomfortable for other person. Then an uncomfortable one for me with Ettore Mancilli, but he didn't fall off. It was a matter of a coach with a club from the Arab Emirates. He goes away 5 months after having signed a contract. In January, he signed a contract, and in May he goes away. He leaves. We filed a complaint in FIFA. We won, and they appealed, saying that the president, the Sheikh from Al Ain, authorized him to go without any problem, without paying anything. Okay. I answered, no, we go to court, and one day before we met, did you authorize Mr. Massini to go away without any problem? No. He spoke English perfectly. He started in England, but we said, let's go to an interpreter so that you can think and speak your mind. The judge, the hearing arrives, and the question to the Sheikh in English, translated to Arabic. Did you authorize Mr. Meshu to go away without paying any compensation? Translation to Arab? And he said, yes. I was shocked. And he said, lost in translation? Something was lost in the translation. Mr. Crespo, Ettore Mancini is from Bari, and he said me, like cutting my head. Does anyone speak Arab in the room? No. So let's ask the question for a second time. Did he go without translation again to Arab? And he replied, yes, again. There you can do nothing. No one listened to me. We went from 900,000 to 300,000. At least we won. And well, he taught me that Arab customers, you have to be careful with them. And the third one is a very, very uncomfortable one. An ordinary procedure, which is not a bill, which is about contracts, versus a team from Romania for an agent, which is Spanish and Romanian. We filed the claim, typical thing with an ordinary procedure. You have not studied the CAS yet. Okay. So 9:15, I say hi to the opponent lawyer. Not that one, but another one. And he says hi, good morning, without any problem. We take a seat, and the unique arbitrator, Mr. Crespo, we have to postpone the hearing. I have a fax. 10 years ago, there were still faxes saying that there's been a complaint filed against you and your customer in Romania for writing fake documents. I said, excuse me? For forgery of documents. We were in the Hotel Borivage, and I said, but what is this? Couldn't you have told me? It's the other lawyer, the Romanian one, and I say that in French, and I said him in French. You son of a... You can imagine what I said in French, which is a language that I know very well. And he said to me, you cannot repeat this to me because otherwise I will go to court. And I took a microphone and I said, you son of... and now go to court, if you dare. He didn't go to court, of course. The arbitrator he was challenged because after winning the criminal procedure in Romania is back again 1 year and a half later, and it is postponed because they submitted some pictures of this arbitrator with me drinking beer. So the guy had to defend, no, this challenge is not valid because, look, I know where this photo comes from. It was a CAS seminar where we gather 400 lawyers and arbitrators where everyone can drink a beer with anyone. I can show you more than 1,000 pictures with me drinking with other lawyers or arbitrators, but it was a very uncomfortable moment. Out of uncomfortable situations, good things can come out. I was a witness of the war between the Spanish Association and Liga, Villar and Javier, and I was there in court week after week, 2 or 3 days per week. Emilio was in the Spanish Association. We didn't know each other, and we became friends. We saw each other so much in court. Emilio García Silvero, he's right now the FIFA legal chief. We saw each other so much because he was just arrived. Let them fight, that's what we said. In Majadahonda courts. I haven't gone back there, but it's true. We could really get along very well. Javier didn't like this. I have another uncomfortable one caused by me, the case of Channel 74 between La Liga and the Spanish Association. The opposite lawyer requests some information, a CD, and I had it here. Here's the CD, no problem. And then he got up, this opposite lawyer who before was a CAS advisor, he takes the CD, and I said, no, excuse me, you are no longer CAS advisor, it is that man's. So he sits down, please sit down, and let this guy do it, because that's his job. It was an uncomfortable moment, but caused by me. You are a specialist in driving the opposite lawyer mad, out of his mind. That guy was the same than yours? Okay, great. So let's move on.
We've already talked about this, but about the colleagues. But let's do the same thing now with clients. The relationship with that client, whether it has been good, bad, meh. What has happened in terms of relationship with clients? We've already talked about colleagues, so let's see about clients. Well, usually clients, what they're looking for is a lawyer that gives them some confidence, that they can trust in you, and that you have the adequate know-how. But I also tried as possible to keep to keep a professional relationship, a nice relationship, to have that kind of professional connection. But aside from that, there's a few exceptions here and there, but in general terms, most of them are just very good professional relationships and nothing more. True, it's very tricky to gain their trust if there is not something, kind of a feeling, if you like. There are some clients that I prefer rather than others. It happens to everyone. And there are some clients that really take a toll on me because you have to say it. You have to say it. It had to be said, and it's said now, because some clients are complex. And the complex ones, at least the ones for me, especially if they have tax matters, I talk with tax lawyers and I realize that they have the same feeling that I have. It's not so much of a personal thing as a general situation. Sometimes it's impossible. And there's one thing that really unnerves me is when they don't tell you everything, or they tell you things but not in the right moment, or tell you that you have already all the documentation when you don't. Because it feels like they are playing, they're playing like they're your enemy, and they should trust you. And sometimes I have been forced to say, if you want to keep on playing the game this way, this is it for me, because I cannot work, I cannot do my job in these conditions. I'm not getting paid for being uncomfortable. Obviously, my job is not to be comfortable, but my job is to do what I have to do and what I know to do. And if you are making it impossible for me, then you have to stand your ground and say, this is it. True, and one of the things in this industry compared to others is that your clients, in many cases, tend to be a bit disorganized, or they have a different kind of life. They tend to be very young, sometimes with complex backgrounds, and sometimes it's easy, or makes it easy to establish a closer relationship with that kind of person. Not necessarily to become friends, but friendly. And sometimes I think it's important to gain the trust of your clients, because obviously you're going to be there to solve their technical issues. But we're not friends. We don't go and have a drink together like that. That's not the kind of relationship we have. So I'm very professional, very serious in that sense. I am giving you advice and giving you technical support. You can call me if you need me, because you can trust me. Even in those cases where some people need an extra of explanation, or just staying with them, helping them in the technical aspects. Well, there's not one single type of client. There are many. And each one has its own peculiarities. Some clients are complex. They're not easy. But I don't find any of them complex. But they say, Juan, I don't want to keep on talking with this client. That's fine, I'll do it. I can listen to anyone. I can listen to anyone and think, oh my God, this guy is a disaster. But that's not a problem. I will still listen to what they need. And you may feel a bit more of a connection with one than with another, but that's okay. They're not your friends. They should not be your friends. They're not there to be your friends. Sometimes friendship just comes naturally. So many years working together, it happens. 4 or 5 athletes are now my friends. There's so many years that we have gone from client into a new sphere, if you like, of human relationship, but that's the exception. If I have 1,000 clients, maybe 5, 10, no more. But you're not looking for that friendship. It just happened. It was something that naturally evolved. But your job is to be there, to listen, to be friendly, to be kind. If you don't like that person that much and it can become an issue, give the case to another lawyer, because you may not be paying enough attention and might be able to read your face. If you don't have a poker face, they might be able to know whether you trust what they're saying or not. And that is something that happens naturally. If we are meant to be friends, we'll become friends, but it's not something that you look for. You have to be professional. You have to keep all the technical assistance. You need to help them. Sometimes it's a doping case, a complex one, where they can lose for 4 years the possibility of keep on playing football. You need to be kind and say, well, tell me everything. Just as Maite said, sometimes they tell you right before the hearing, or the day before the hearing. I had a football player from Ukraine that told me the day before the hearing, well, I didn't tell you the whole truth. The truth is that I was taking this to become slimmer because I was a goalkeeper, or I was like whatever, and if I was 5 kilos over my weight, well, that was not a problem. And then my wife saw me, I was very sad, and my agent created this whole thing. But at that time, it was clear, because if your wife knew it, the moment they start interrogating her, the moment the questions start, she might make a mistake. That's the guy who used to drink a glass of water that the wife was preparing that and giving to him, not telling him what was in that glass of water. Because I think I studied that one. I've been studying doping cases recently. Well, you have to pay closer attention. You need to help that person. But if there's no fluent communication, if they're not letting you know everything that happens, if there's no trust, that was many years ago. But even then, I felt like I was very young. I was not ready for everything. I was not ready to identify if someone is telling me the truth or not. So I tend to ask, are you telling me the truth? Yes. Are you telling me the truth? Yes. I'm going to ask you for the third time. If you deny me 3 times, like the Bible states, we're going to have an issue. But, well, honestly, there's something I should tell you. Well, this is the moment. Tell me. So this is precisely what you need, to have that understanding, to have that connection. Friendship is not the objective, and friendship could come, if it comes, with time in a natural way. We have some questions that I can ask, but they have told me not to ask. I have the Super League, but they told me not to ask about the Super League. Well, it will depend. If we answer the questions, you might not have a 4th edition of the International Sports Lawyer Meeting. Well, I was going to ask about the Super League, but let's not repeat it. We have some questions from the streaming. Yes, fantastic. We will be happy to reply to those, because I'm a bit scared about asking things and then the ground will just swallow us whole, or the mic will stop working. That kind of things kind of scare me. So what do you think about limiting commissions and fees for agents? What FIFA has tried to approve, and it was actually voted for in October of 2023, but some of the courts in Brazil and Spain, Germany, UK, I think there was another country, I don't know if it was Belgium, England, yes, England. I'm talking about the arbitration court, but the legal courts in the rest of the countries. Well, I think that in my case, regarding agents, I tend to be quite liberal. I'm not particularly in favor of the cap of the commission fee. When you are an agent, and FIFA cannot come and limit your practice. Also because all the rationale they've used to justify this, it's a bit cynical, because in the end, this is a business that generates a lot of money. We are all part of this business, so we know. And in the end, these matters that have to do with the amount of money that comes out of the football might not be the moment to consider this, because agents are part. But FIFA says they are not part. But if we're creating a system precisely where agents are part of the family, of the sports family, that goes back to the beginning, actually, of this whole thing, of this whole conversation, you need to give the opportunity of that business to self-regulate. It's just exactly as anything else in life. Football generates a lot of money. How you manage that money, clubs, teams, decide how much money they get to their, how much money they allocate and pay their players. And these are complex situations, legally speaking, even more so than what we're saying so far. So you're liberal in that respect. Quite liberal, yes. You want the market to self-regulate, yes. I agree with the idea of having some recommendations, but coming through the associations to make sure that the principles will not get out of hand. But I don't think the FIFA as an institution should be regulating these fees, at least in the way they have been doing. I think the main issue might be that the caps they have identified are not real. Well, some might be. Well, yeah, maybe, but not fully. If they cannot be comparable to others. So in the end, it doesn't make any sense. If they were reasonable, things would have been easier, but they have not. That's my personal situation. I fully agree. I've been very critical with this regulation. I think this is a regulation where you says, if you know the market, how can you prove this? I also think that the position or the rationale, as Lucas mentioned, are extremely cynical and almost astounding, where you try to justify this control you want to exercise on the market through this regulation. I think in many ways is to destroy a system that might not be the best. And there has to be a control, yes. You have to control things so that they will not get out of hand. You need to make sure that things follow the code of ethics. But aside from that, all that can be done without this regulation. The regulation we have right now doesn't work. And it doesn't work. And I'm not even going to go in deep here because it's sub judice here in Spain by court. The court hearing will be on the 9th of May. I don't know exactly if it's against or not against the competency law. It will all be decided by a ruling of the judge. And it's definitely not the way to regulate the profession. And that's quite evident. Controls are okay, but you cannot say, I'm going to bring agents to FIFA only for those things that are interesting to me, but for those things that are not interesting for me, they are not part of FIFA. Because Emilio has always telling me this, but maybe one of the elements that probably are more interesting for us is for FIFA to understand disputes better, but they're not going to go in there. And I tell this to my students. If I have an agent, Spanish agent, with a Colombian player playing in Brazil and stops getting the money that that he's due, I cannot go to FIFA to ask for that, to say there's a breach of contract. But they can control agents, but they cannot solve disputes. They can only know about those matters that happen in an international transfer. So if they stop paying me there, when that player is playing there, they don't consider this as an international transfer. And Emilio told me, so in those cases, you will have to go to the national chamber. Which national chamber? The Spanish one, the Brazilian one, or the one in Colombia? But to go to the CAS, you need to do an ordinary arbitration. And some agents can do that, but others cannot. But only for international transfers, the FIFA will participate. So that says that, are we talking about agents or intermediaries? So when there is intermediaries, then we can talk, but if it's agents, we cannot. So the regulation, just as it is today, has huge gaps everywhere. So we cannot understand. What the main idea, therefore, is that the regulation is not properly done. Well, I am absolutely against the limitation of the fees. This is something that creates another jurisdictional issue. because they're creating an intermediation regulation for transfers in order to control that. I'm also against what FIFA has been doing in the last few years, where they are forbidding investment funds, and it seems like everything has to go through them. I'm organizing courses, I'm offering training, I'm controlling everyone, I. But the idea is to have more transparency. But using transparency is not enough. There's a bit of in-house there that in the end it's been translated into an excessive level of control where they control everything. Because if you do that, there's not going to be disputes. Everything is perfect according to you. It's everything under control. So that's dangerous in itself. And I'm happy that there's some procedures where people are fighting against this regulation. And also, for example, with the Super League, although we cannot go in directly into that topic, but the thing that we can talk about some models and the possibility of having other points of views, because this is an attack against the possibility to negotiate and to do, I don't know what is going to happen, who gets specialized in sports law, what they have to do. But in the second option, analyzed by this regulation, says that they have to be having like a maximum cap of fees for agents. And there were a lot of letters received, and they had to take it off the final test after a few months. But the procedures are there. We're just starting, and they are starting to tell them to stop because of regulation. I don't know if it is as over-regulation, over-control, because it feels like they have to have everything under control, and that's impossible, especially when we're talking about regulation. If you want to regulate, regulate, that's fine. But if you want to regulate international transfer to be done through this specific mechanism, that's fine, that's great. That allows us to follow a specific path instead of everyone doing whatever they want. But the in-house element is that you are becoming that element, that path to do things. Well, it's a good idea. So for small teams, it could help, but it's not working. The truth is that it's not working. This takes us to situations where when you have to do things, and sometimes you take a step too far, you overstep your boundaries, and therefore you take it too far away. And you start making weird things. That's true. And there's also that behavioral pattern that we're seeing right now. They're imposing control with the PPO. We're going to forbid it. We are not going to create a discussion. We're not inviting people to be part of the discussion. We just ban it, and that's it. That's how they solve everything lately. And that, in the end, takes us to these situations where you have to say, well, that's it for me, that's it. And now, like in May 82, there was a 68, sorry, in May 68, there was the Paris revolt. You're such a revolutionary. Well, the idea was that it was ban to ban. And shall we all go into that direction as sports lawyer?
We can do that, all of us as sports lawyers. I will be in the front line. Emilio always says something in order to convince me when I am vindicating something. We have a vision very much focused on Europe, but FIFA governs for all associations, and then you realize that they use that for everything. So, hey, excuse me, if you have a case when there's a clear abuse, you have the means to say this is an abuse. That's a lie, because South American agents are the first to criticize this regulation. They say, we cannot live with a 3% or with a 6%. It goes against small agents. It is conceived for large transactions.
Un baremo, como yo le dije a Emilio una vez. Pon un baremo. 3% para los de más de 15 millones.
So do have a scale, 3% from X euros. I don't know. It shouldn't be limited.
Bueno, tenemos que seguir.
We have to move on. First,
Preguntas. Segundo,
because we have questions here. Second, because I have a taxi
volver esta tarde, que mañana
waiting for me
a las 7:15 taxi sin falta.
tomorrow.
Por favor, Carolina, para que
7:15
pueda ir al tren.
taxi
Vamos
for
a
me
pasar a la
because
tercera
I have to take a
fase ya.
train.
Encuentro esta tercera fase y luego las preguntas.
Now let's talk about close encounters of the third kind.
¿Qué sois ahora
What are you
ya en un
now?
terreno
We are.
de la edad
This is
que
metaphysical.
de estos jóvenes que hacen el máster que van a
Given our age, we are not young people.
más abogados,
What are you now?
más,
Are you more
relaciones públicas,
lawyers, more public relations, more managers?
¿qué sois?
What's your main job now?
Al menos en mi caso la carrera va evolucionando.
At least
Va
in my
llevando
case, my career
evolucionar dentro de todos
evolves,
estos
and you
parámetros. Y
evolve
alguno más que has dicho, los abogados al final,
within these
y sobre todo,
parameters.
lo que yo veo,
Lawyers,
al
what I
menos como
say,
tú, ¿no? También nuestra tarea
that's
es
what you
ser
mentioned
clientes,
before.
nuestra
Our job
carrera
is finding
pues
clients,
esto, mantenerlos, ganar los casos,
keeping them,
tú mismo
winning
decías,
cases,
tienes otra parte, ¿no?
getting
Tú
paid,
también cobrador del frac también,
which
son
is
muchas
important.
tareas que uno va uniendo a la
Many
pública,
tasks
¿no? Que es la
you
que
have,
todos,
apart from
cuando
your
esto
legal
lo
job,
tienes en la
which
cabeza,
is the origin, what you have in your mind, writing,
vas añadiendo
going to
más partes y más capas a todo
hearings,
esto,
but
y
you
ahora
add more
es
parts,
verdad
more
que,
layers.
al menos en mi caso,
And
yo
today
trabajo
it
con
is
mi
true
equipo,
that,
esto hace
at
que,
least in
pues,
my
a
case, I have a
puedas
team,
delegar, puedas dedicarte
so
a la captación de
I can
clientes,
delegate some tasks. You
venir a
can
charlas como esta,
be
que
more
también es una
focused
parte
on
importante,
attracting
y yo puedo
clients,
estar
coming
aquí
to this kind
porque tengo un equipo que
of
está
seminars.
a toda
I can be
máquina
here
trabajando con
because
otros temas,
I have a
mientras,
team
pues, y yo
who's
puedo-
working
puedo
in other
venir aquí
topics.
a contestar preguntas
So you can be here relaxed,
y
answering
al final,
metaphysical
pues, esto forma
questions
parte un poco, ¿no?
when I was
de este
when
crecimiento
about when I was
profesional.
young, and
Pues sí,
this
yo creo que
all
un poco de todo
is
eso,
part of this
echo
professional
de
growth.
menos, y lo digo de verdad, yo hoy lo comentaba
What I
con-
miss, and I really mean it,
a
when
veces
I
echo de
was
menos
having
esa-
lunch
esa parte
today,
más de-
I said that with to my colleagues. Sometimes I miss
se va
this
diluyendo, ¿no? La de
part
sentarte a redactar
that
una demanda, a ponerte a escribir, a romperte
is
la cabeza.
less and less important.
Esta parte
Sitting
que
down
vas
to write
dejando por otros
a
y vas
complaint,
haciendo, que es la que te enamora de la
you delegate that to
profesión,
others.
a lo largo de los años pues vas añadiendo otras, ¿no? Que
So
también
along the
forman parte
years, you
de una
add other
parte de-
layers. Today,
El despacho Statim, como sabes, empezamos hace poco más de un año, con lo cual
my
añades,
firm,
además de
we
las capas que ya había, otra que es
began
la
1 year ago. You have so another layer, which is management. We, the four of us, we are developed. We are working in that, managing human capital, building up a team. So a little bit of everything. Maite, well, as Jose is not here today, thanks to my partners, I can do what I want, which is sitting down in my office, which is what I like, writing. I am now replying to Sue. These are complex things, and when you realize that you can be reading, studying, watching, and I can do that thanks to my partners. Some of them have a more commercial profile. What I do is making litigation clients happy so that they come back. But I had to do many things for much time. I realized that I couldn't do everything, and you have to be aware of that. I can be better in one specific area, and I will focus on that one than in others. I would really like to be multi-area, but this is the way I enjoy. So right now, if I had to say something, I am This has been really a legal pleasure for me. It's not that I'm a weirdo, but I close the door. I work with earplugs because I don't tolerate noise. That's what I do, writing. Management stuff, this morning I have 3-4 little things. I did them for 1 hour, and after that, for 5 hours, I've been stuck on that, very focused on what I normally do. This is what Lucas said. At the end of the day, you do kind of everything. And as time goes by, you have to do management stuff, team management, well, a little bit of everything. All kind of problems, but I am happy because I like this balance between the management, commercial and technical parts. But it is true that I don't forget about the technical parts. I think we need being this technical part, being there, and at least saying that you finish your day. Okay, you may have had management stuff, but you've had a hearing, so you can say, I've done something productive. Because you meet customers, you meet people, because people need you to pay attention to them. So more or less, I think I have quite a balance and I enjoy it. So for the time being, I'm okay with it. Litigate is what I like the most. CAS, FIFA, litigate in hearings. The other day, a CONMEBOL hearing about doping. Preparation comes from your assistants, colleagues who are with you. They give you everything done, and you are experienced. You say, I take this, I don't take this. But the preparation is done by others, because you don't have time for everything. That's what I like. Of course, public relations, will buyer. I was in Senegal. What do I do in Senegal? I was given a conference to 60, 70 people with 6, 7 clubs, agents. I had a very important case in Senegal, I think 7 years ago, and I could have a new one now. So you have to sell, to attract, to maintain the customer. And then, with non-payments, these people have not paid. So you have to call, send an email. So please, when are you going to pay to me? And then the firm, which is a priority, your office. But it's different. There are many lawyers, so you have to be like the father of the family. You have to unify in case of any problem among them. You have to be the peacemaker. Many things related to but we are, the four of us are litigators, and litigation, many people are afraid of it because it is harsh. But I really like it, going into a courtroom. That's the best part of it. Last week I had my first hearing as a CAS arbitrator, and wow, it's hard. It's very hard, because it's not the same thing. In addition, you are thinking, please don't say that. I would have said, with time, this will disappear, but I will really miss it. I still have other hearings. This is not just a matter of, but I encourage you to litigate. That's really exciting. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to questions from the audience.
Pues una última, nada más, una última pregunta.
Es ingobernable.
Me vas a llevar tú la contraria.
Que es normal que se haga esta. ¿Hacia dónde vamos?
It's a normal question. Where are we going to heading to? Where are we heading to in sports law?
Te juego, calla.
En fin. Quo Vadis, ¿dónde va el fútbol?
Quo Vadis,
El deporte, ¿no? El derecho,
where sports heading to? Where sports law heading to?
las cosas que podemos
Which problems
Voy a tratar,
may we face?
voy a tratar de resumir, ser muy breve.
I'll try
exacto,
to say something very fast because we are
Yo creo que al
out of
final
time.
el camino
Well,
lo marca
the way
las dinámicas, ¿no? Yo creo que
is
estamos en
set
un
by
momento de
dynamics. We are in a moment of change.
cambio que es presente. Aún así, hay como un empeño en
However,
de entretenimiento,
there is
del
kind of a
entertainment,
will
esto
to
que
talk
ahora
about
sports and entertainment, que yo creo que está ahí.
sports and entertainment, which is there, but sports law to me is one thing. The American model where sports and entertainment are put together to create something different to what we have in Europe. It is okay, and if this system is implemented in Europe, we will have to adapt ourselves to that reality, but we have a mixed model of this. We will make a different path, the one which is trying to be imposed. We have to pay attention to necessities and realities on a daily basis. Today, sports is changing. We're heading to a different system. Ideas like the Super League is contributing to that, starting a new dialogue. Before we had a one-way road, now it is no longer the case. This is a whole process. We're in the middle of it. Things are changing, but not the way we want sometimes or the way we try to sell them. It is a path forward, and from the sports law environment we have to adapt to changes as we've always done. We've lived different realities. You always tell us about there was a moment when you couldn't talk to FIFA. If you phoned them as a lawyer, they didn't answer. This is a reality. In a few years, we will live a different reality. I couldn't agree more. As I have in front of me the picture of the new Bernabeu, this is the perfect example of how things change. Where are we heading to? Poor Lucas. We head into a model, a more American model. But from the legal point of view, not commercial, but legal. If we focus on the legal part, there will be new problems. But Juan, you've been here for many years, and there are some topics that may be more complex if we compare them with 40 years ago. But there are still breaches of contracts, non-payment problems, baenas. I'll tell you now my view on that, but if Javier can finish, there will be new things. We have tokens, Bitcoin. Of course, we have to reshape ourselves. The word here is adaptation. Yeah, I fully agree on that. There are many areas which are evolving. I was talking to Emilio Butragueño a while ago. You see the offices, how they have evolved, how they've changed. What we have now was impossible back in the days. Now there are new formats. If we talk about sports law, I think that we are more global now. You were one of the pioneers here in this global environment. Now we are all more global, we interact more, there are more. There are things which are faster. AI will have an impact on us, of course. I have a personal view on that. I think it's a weapon of mass destruction. We have to coexist with it, yes, but we'll have to evolve. but problems will be similar. This role of lawyer will not disappear. However, we will be more advisors in certain topics, and we'll have to specialize. The great difference I see since we began on this is that before, regulations were not very useful. They were in favor of the association or the organizer, FIFA, UEFA, CONMEBOL, FIBA, badminton. And today, with sports lawyers, we have professionalized all this. The cases we had before that were about discussing on a regulation that had no disciplinary matter, now that's over. Now we discuss about the disciplinary sanction. Thanks to the sports lawyers, we've forced large federations and clubs to do more legal things. The rest is still the same. If we need to draft a contract to pay a player in bitcoins, what's the value of bitcoins? 60,000? I'm up to date regarding bitcoins. So let's put a clause to foresee if Bitcoin can go up or down. Doping, what kind of doping? Before we didn't mention anything about illegal betting on players. So if there's a sanction, we can also fire you, or depending if it's a very important player. The basis, the backbone is still law. Sports law has only changed in regulations, statutes, and everything that differentiates sports law from commercial law or mercantile law. This has changed because it was necessary, and associations and clubs have adapted because of the money. If there's money, there's more control. Lawyers, we are forced to be there to control. Sometimes they let us do that, or take shortcuts. And now questions.
So first here on the beach and then outside. We have 2 questions in English and 2 questions in Spanish. Anisha from India tells us, and this is a question for you, of course. ¿Hay cuestiones especiales a la hora de contratar a la gente para trabajos relacionados? What are the main elements? Shall we answer in English or Spanish? There's translation. Okay. There's translation then in that case. I'm going to be very, very, very brief. Please, do so. Go ahead.
Para mí, o al menos tal y como lo enfocamos nosotros en el despacho cuando buscamos a alguien, es lo primero que queremos es determinación y ganas. Es decir, nosotros la capacidad jurídica.
To have determination, to be willing. Obviously, skills are fundamental.
Cuando llega alguien que sale de un máster, eso pues es
But aside from that, we need to improve as much as possible, always. What we cannot negotiate, what we cannot accept is the lack of commitment, the lack of desire to learn more. You can have more or less skills, but you need to be committed to learn more. And the level of demand, the level of what you're doing in a mastery at the university, well, you tend to say, I'll do the best I can to pass my grades, but with a client, the level will always be the top level. We cannot allow the possibility in the firm to accept anything that is not the very best. And for that, you need that commitment. Aside from that, we'll see everything else. We'll improve every other skill. Nobody has everything at the very beginning, but we need to have that commitment in order to move forward. Anything else to add? Well, I agree 100%. I would like to add something. Recently, someone come to the firm. The resume was amazing, the best grades at the university, and he made me a question, the first one. When will I start traveling with you? And I said, now? And he said, really? He said, yeah, that's the door. You can travel through it. You cannot ask these kind of questions. Commitment first, and then everything else will come on its own. Patience could be good. I will never do what you said. If 25 years I've never done anything, I'll just go into a courtroom. No, I'll invite people to come, to listen, to learn. Well, when I did it myself, someone else was coming to the court. It was out of necessity, and it was a random situation. I was just there, right time, right place. But I do agree with you when you say that commitment is fundamental. Professionalism is the desire to do things right. Everything else will come. And usually I will tell people, you will do this online, then you will come here and you will listen, then you will be able to make questions, then you will be able to do a counter-interrogatory, and then you'll be able to do a 2-minute speech on a specific topic, and then after all that, you will be able to go on your own. But little by little, you learn, you train. Some people are better than others, that's true, depends on everyone, but you need to train, and you need to train hard. The second question also by Anisha. It's almost a second part of the first question. Anisha, the answer would be no. You have to be honest, hardworking, and to work a lot. I'm really not interested in just some resumes, even with apprenticeship. I make an interview through Zoom to everyone. I would like to hire a lot of people, but just a curriculum will not let me know everything. I want to know how you work. I want to have a direct connection with you. Basic application form is not going to do the job for me, because a lot of people will come to you, I love sports, and I always tell you, yeah, but you need to love the law as well. Because that's true. That always happens. I was telling Lucas, I received an email saying, this was an apprenticeship option. I love the Real Madrid, and I was like, fantastic for you. That's great. Great on you. Enjoy it. It's not a requirement for the job, but that's great to know. And for me, that would be an issue. No, that's a joke. Mine should all be fans of Valencia, otherwise. Erika makes a question that seems a bit out of place, because we will need a whole lesson to that. It had to do with doping decisions in China. That's almost a master. It's a master. You need at least an hour to explain it. And people need to make questions here. Erika, you should come to the master to learn about this. She is from Spain. Erika, if we have a class about the CAS, you need to come to that one. This is a very complex question. We cannot answer it in a minute. Francisco Llana, another complex one. Literature. By literature, you mean books, or you mean literature on sports? Books to know more about sports law. There's 1,000, some of them better than others, but there's 1,000 of them. You cannot just select one. I will write an email to Carolina, and Carolina will send it to us, and we'll send you some. But it will be good to know, because the sports law is so vast that you can let us know a little bit more about what is your interest. Because there's 1,000 and more books. For example, civil responsibility and liabilities, and then there's doping and anti-doping measures. But as Paco Umbral, the writer, I think he was drunk when he was asked this question on television. They said, well, I'm here to talk about my book. I came here to talk about my book. I don't know if you remember him. He died a few years ago. But nonetheless, I will have a book, but my book was 2015, probably very outdated by now, but it has a lot to do with some elements. But now we have been working with my co-author and me, new commentaries and new information about the FIFA that will be published hopefully by the end of this year so that you can give it as a gift on Christmas. And just as you recommended that, there is also a CAS manual on arbitration. It's specialized in CAS. You, if I'm not wrong, you were part of the writing of that. If 2021 was it? I think so. And it's also a very interesting book to know more about the CAS. That's an excellent book. I would recommend it. And I was a co-author of it. I have not been participating in any of those books, but I found both quite interesting. And if you need to speak and do public speaking, I just read The Art of Being Right by Schopenhauer, and I think it was brilliant. And the art of always being right, isn't it? Well, it was not exactly. What was the title in German? I'm not going to say it. Anyway, it's a great, great book. Excellent recommendation for anyone because it's quite interesting, especially for us. We earn our living making people trust us, making people believe in what we're saying. It's a short book. I'm not telling you to read Kant. This is an easy book it's an easy reading. And let's not forget that our job is to convince a third person that we are right. So I think this is an interesting kind of book. And we're also going to do a very usual thing when you're in a master's class or even with a coaching, the Art of War of Sun Tzu. That's another book to recommend. I'm recommending it, but I like also that Schopenhauer recommendation, The Art of Always Being Right. It's a short book, 70 pages if I'm not wrong. In German it's a bit longer, of course. You can also read it in German if you feel like it. Javier, any other book you might recommend? I was also going to say, because in my opinion it's interesting, is to be able to write adequately. Sometimes we tend to write very long claims and lawsuits when the best option is to be able to explain things clearly. If you can write it down in 20 pages, then don't write down 50. So if you're going to write down things, do so that someone who doesn't know, although obviously that person knows, will be able to understand the whole case by reading what you have prepared. Because it has happened to me. I've been reading 25 pages of a case, and I have no idea what I'm reading. I'm completely out of it because I don't understand what I'm reading. It's fundamental not only to be able to express yourself orally, but also to be able to do so in written form. The capacity, the skill to summarize, to be clear when you're writing down things, and to do so grammarly. And to read a lot. Because there are some arbitrators that are better at writing than others, but some of these arbitral rulings are fantastic readings. You should read them, and I will recommend you. And if you have to select an arbitrator, you need to read the rulings of those arbitrators in order to understand them and to see how they write. Any questions from the floor? Anyone that wants to raise a hand? Let's see who breaks the ice. Can we have a microphone? No microphone? Who are you, first of all? I come from Panama. I'm sorry, he doesn't have a microphone, so we're going to try to do our best to interpret it. Lucas can tell you more about the hidden Panama. He was there. It was a wonderful place. He was almost fired, but still. The mic is not on. Can you tap it? Well, take into consideration the issues that we have with the agents' regulations. I completely agree with what you just said in the forum. What could be the solution by FIFA, take into consideration the American model so that they can find a middle ground where everyone will be more or less happy without limiting agents' fees. How can FIFA adapt the regulation based on the American model to find a solution? The FIFA is not going to do anything until the European Court issues a ruling. Once the ruling is out, we'll see what the ruling says, and after that, the FIFA will make a decision. But we've already given FIFA a lot of opportunities in, I think it's 5 or almost 6 years, where they've been doing almost 8 different drafts of this regulation. They've never listened. They never paid attention. They just took that element of the lawyers, but barely nothing else. So they're not going to listen or pay attention. And so we have to continue to do so until they start listening. Another question from here? Yes. No, but I wanted to know if you believe that FIFA could adapt the American model to improve, but we'll need to wait for the ruling, first of all, because if the ruling is telling us that freedom is there, nobody's going to pay attention to the American model. Let's wait. Let's wait for the ruling. 2-3 years, more or less? Yeah, at least 2. More than saying, I don't know if it's just the American model or not, I will just say, as Maite mentioned, what is agents asking for? They want some legal security, this fact that they might have a space where they could discuss, where they could deal with the issues of their international work, and FIFA wants control. So up to that point, all good. But it would be very interesting to understand if there's going to be an insurance, if there's going to be a guarantee, if there's going to be control. But everything else, in terms of the particularities of the relationships between the agent, the players, the teams, I think it's excessive. Because the American model, it's a different kind of system, but FIFA thinks, okay, there are some issues in China, in Spain, in Cameroon, Ecuador, so it's a complex situation. Let's see what Europe thinks about it. Thank you. Hello, and I want to thank the 4 of you for being here. It's a very interesting forum. I have a question. I have a hearing in the CAS in May. It's my first one. I would like to know if, when you were young, you're still young, I'm not calling you old. When you were younger, if you like, yes, if you have had some advice, what would that be? If you could have some advice for your 25 or 26-year-old you back then. Well, first of all, you have to know the case from top to bottom. You don't need to read it. You know it by heart. There's nothing worse than people reading during the hearing. You have to read, of course, reading is good, but not during the hearing. Or those with the screen in front of the face, reading from the screen. In a case against FIFA, 2 different disciplinary sanctions against Statim. I accept the first one, but I was talking about the second one. I was like, yeah, we accepted it, but it was written that I had to read it. And I was like, but I accepted it. You don't need to, even though it might be written. That will be an issue. And also, you need a pencil and a paper in order to take notes about every single other elements and other witnesses, because you need to be ready so that when you start talking by the end in your final speech, you need to have everything about what has happened in that hearing, because what has happened before, they already know that. So it's like you are a leopard waiting for your prey, and you have to be ready for it. I completely agree with what Juan has said. You learn with time, and it's something that you will probably not do on the first hearing. The fact that you will be able to control every single element, to do what Juan is saying, which is precisely how during conclusions, during that final speech, you can create a full-on speech with all the elements of what has been said. But that's precisely the key. So my advice for you would be know everything better than anyone else in that room. You need to know the case from top to bottom so that you can move and improvise if needed, because if you know it all, you have the control. And then pay attention, listen. That's fundamental during the hearing, and it's not easy. It sounds very obvious, but it's not easy to listen to the other part, to listen to the arbitrators when they're asking questions, and to write down, take notes. Take notes or remember things when they're asking a question. That question has a reason behind it. And sometimes it's letting you know what that arbitrator is thinking. And if you're ready to react and you have the skill to do so fast, you can do great. So a lot of luck. When? It's about training rights with FIFA. I guess in-house. Okay, well, good luck. I will tell you that the best advice is to be confident on yourself. And how do you get that confidence? By doing all that previous work. Have you been to a courthouse here in Spain? Well, no? Fantastic. So you don't have that things that you learn in the Spanish court, because it's not going to work you for CAST. I think there's some hearings are being recorded, so you can see that and learn from it. We went on blind because there were no recordings back then. And Lucas and I, we went on blind, but now you can see how it works, how a hearing works, how the arbitrators behave. And also, it's good to know more about your arbitrator. I think you will only have one single arbitrator, isn't it? Have you found out who the arbitrator is and what they have written? Books, podcasts, rulings, everything. Study everything. You need to know who the arbitrator is and study that arbitrator. If it's a British one, they love to interrupt, which we're not used to do that. And unless you know that they can do that, and they will do that, and they will ask questions where you're like, what is happening? Nobody will do that to me. But I'm really happy that you made this question, because I wanted to mention this, and you have to do that, and then there's going to be another interruption, then another interruption, and they are interrupting even your answerings. But just be relaxed, be at ease. I am very nervous as a woman, and I'm telling you to go calm, to go in very relaxed mode. It's an experience. If you've done all your homework, you'll do great. You will not do fantastic, because the first time it's impossible to do fantastic, but you'll do great. Do you know who's the other part? Have you also studied? It's FIFA. Well, there are two, actually. Yes, a team and FIFA. But have you, we already know who they are. They can be a junior or a senior. Do you know all the lawyers, the names? Is it Spania or foreigner? Spania. Is it here? No. I have something on that same day, but I don't think it's that one. Is it online or in person? It's online. Oh, a pity, but it's nice for you because it's your first one. But it's worse in terms of the experience. Now, connecting to that, I don't know if you've been lucky or not, but based on what Maite said, it would have been interesting if you have been in a courthouse here in Spain, because you will value the CAS more, because you will see how it's something that you can enjoy, and you will probably enjoy it more with time, because it is a place where, luckily, arbitrators are very prepared. In many cases, I've been in courthouses where they interrupt you, they make comments or they ask questions, and you internally think, well, they are right in what they're telling me, and you're learning from that. And in a normal courthouse, they might not have even read the case, and here they do. So enjoy it, but you need to be ready to react, because obviously from in-person to online things change, but at least it's the first one, so it would be good to conceal the nerves. But please dress properly. don't go in Bermudas or shorts, just dress properly. And I was in class recently, and I told everyone in the class, telling that if I went to a Spanish courthouse, I will be taken to jail. And they laughed, and I was like, why? It's like, because I'm in the CIS, I am really good. So that will limit me here. Because in courthouses here, sometimes they haven't even read the documents, and you have to explain a case from scratch. But in the CIS, they have read it. The arbitrators, most of the cases, might know even more about the case than you might think. And they might know about the sports law than you. You cannot, you will get nervous, obviously, otherwise something is wrong, but you have to try to control those nerves. But it's even worse to read if you're in a video conference, so try not to do that, because I've been in one and I noticed how the lawyer who used to be my student was reading all the time, and it was even worse. So don't do that. So make sure to have a good camera that shows your face. So a close-up, a very good close-up with a good lighting and a good camera. And it is a lot of advice you're getting for free. And now you have to win with all this, or at least sometimes not losing is a winning. So a tie is okay. We're appealing. Oh, that's the best way to go, because then you are in for the fight. And open statements. You have to call their attention. You have to attract their attention. I have this quite clear. Be organized, speak clearly. Conclusions are fundamental, but open statements, it's clear to explain the case from the very beginning. So the first, it's when you are reminding the arbitrator what has happened. 5-7 minutes. Key points, that's it. Some British and Latin American lawyers can take up to an hour. No need. Be fast, be brief, be clear. This is clear to understand for this reason, this reason, this reason. And these are the mistakes made by FIFA, this, and this. And you'll see it clearly. And then in the conclusions, you'll explain what has happened throughout that hearing. But they need to understand that you are there to win. They need to feel your desire to win, that you have everything clear in your mind. You know everything that has happened, but you have to give that image. I know what I'm talking about. This is clear. This is easy. I'm going to win. Sometimes FIFA makes mistake, not always. But in this case particularly, it has made a mistake. But for a master, I think this would be a very interesting class to test this. We have this in English and in Spanish. So you prepare people for this? Yes, that's fantastic. My son does that. That's even better. We have to close here. So a final question? Final question. Thank you. I am a student of sports management, and I wanted to know more about sponsorship, and I wanted to know how a lawyer faces issues with a new sponsorship agreement. That could be also another hour. These are very difficult questions. These are the questions for your class. How many of you are there? And when you're in class and I go there, you don't ask questions, but you have to make these questions. This is a question that takes a lot of time, because you have to talk about negotiation. You need to talk about the specific type of sponsorship, whether it's for an individual sport, if it's a player in a teamwork experience, if the contract is for a player or for the team. Sometimes you can do very little because they are already standardized contracts. Others have a lot of different aspects that can be regulated. So it's very difficult because it will depend on so many different factors. I remember, for example, there was a football player and a sports shoes maker, and we had to talk about doping there. Will it terminate the contract with the test sample A, the test sample B, when the decision is appealed, when it's not. For example, with Ronaldo, we had this problem because he used to shave his head off, and he had a contract for a product that enhanced the quality of hair, and he was keeping his hair long for this contract. And then he said, but I play better when I shave my head off, so I want to terminate this contract so that I can actually shave my head. And we're like, no, but the contract is in place. You cannot terminate the contract. It was like, yeah, but I'm playing worse because I have long hair and I want to shave it off. So there's so many different aspects. And especially now that there's so many aspects, so many things to sell. And with that, we will conclude today. Thank you very much for your time and attention. We hope you have enjoyed the event.